everybody grieves differently and in different timings, and don't let anybody make you feel crap for that. You don't get like, oh, you know, you've got cancer, you've got this long to live. It was just like she was here and then she was gone. So then I went into, well, I have to be in control of every situation and think of every tiny little thing preemptively so that bad things don't occur. And the kids were very different as well. Like Lacey is very matter of fact. Oh yeah, Nanny's dead. It's in heaven. Like that's probably Nanny there. That's a star. Nanny's watching us. And
didn't she tell random people that on the street?
My nanny died. She's in heaven. If one more person said, have you prayed?
Oh my gosh, totally.
I was going to slap them across the face. I'm like, do you not think I've tried that? Oh my God.
It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And this is the second time you've been here. We were at your house last time, which was a while ago. You guys were pulling the place apart.
Yeah, you haven't seen it since.
No, we haven't.
There were, everything was shoved in the lounge room.
Oh, yeah. Including you guys.
And mattresses.
We were all in the lounge room. Yeah.
And I think the kids were sleeping in the other one. Or...
Yeah.
Yep.
They were. Slumber party.
How's the house now?
The renos are done, but I want to do the floor.
Right. Never ending.
Now you want to do the floor.
Like, okay, yeah, we're done. I'm like, I really don't like the floor now. It's the one thing we didn't do. We thought we could get away with like leaving it be, but I think now that everything else is nice and fresh, it just stands out more to me. Yeah.
And the studio's done. That's rocking and rolling.
Yeah, studio's done. That's good fun.
You've got models rolling through on a daily basis.
Yes. Yeah. People filming content and videographers and photographers and models. Heaps of people, different people hire it.
Any podcasts?
We have a couple of people asking to do podcasts, but it's more if they're going to have the right equipment to do so with directional mics because of the surrounding sound and the road noise.
That was literally our problem this morning. As I was saying before, had to race and get a mic. Thank you, Patty. Appreciate you.
Shout out, Patty.
But we've known each other a long time.
Yes.
We go back to 2004 or so. When did you come up? Or maybe a little later than that.
Yeah, so maybe 06.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you and Ben had come up from Coffs?
Yeah, he came up a year before I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And you guys are childhood sweethearts?
Yeah, 16 I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to introduce yourself and just a little bit about where, you and Ben, family life, where things are sort of currently.
So obviously started at 16 in high school, and Ben was a year older than me. So he finished high school a year before and moved to the Gold Coast to study graphic design, which wasn't available in Coffs Harbour at the time. And I stayed back and finished year 12. So we did long distance for a year.
That's tough.
Yeah. Yep. And then moved up the day after my HC.
Wow.
Right.
Packed the car
so
and
schoolies
left.
was like, I'll just go see
moved
my
to
boyfriend.
the Gold Coast.
Get me out of here. Where's Ben?
Yep. And then obviously stayed here for quite a while. Settled down, bought a house, got married, had babies, did all of that. And
couple of babies?
Yeah, a couple of babies. Zion is now 11 and Lacey is about to turn 10.
And we just learnt not big enough to ride the front seat of the car.
No, and Mummy will protect them until it's not okay anymore.
Rules are rules.
I feel like they've had a part of their childhood that they're going to miss out on.
They will.
Yeah.
And they will
but they'll be safe.
Totally. Yeah. So then we moved back to Coffs Harbour for 7 years, back to our hometown for help with the family while the babies were little, and got bored of that. Small town.
It's a small little surf town.
Yeah. It was good.
Help.
It was good for the season that we're in,
just
to have a bit of a slower life. It's a bit more affordable to live, and
family around
and help.
And then you moved back here.
Got bored of the slow and needed the fast again.
Yeah.
So back up to Goldie during COVID.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah,
And
put our house
literally
sight unseen.
and literally over the hill from us.
Yes, so close.
I mean, you were there first,
Yes.
so we thought if it's good enough for you guys,
Yeah.
we're going to get in.
Great. I'm glad I could do that for you.
Totally. That's beautiful. Okay, and give us a little bit of insight into Ben and Jazz and sort of just, context of your lives. And then we'll get into a bit more of, your
Why we're
personal
here.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Ben's one of 3 kids. So he had a little bit of a different life to me. I was an only child. So we definitely had different upbringings. And I was born in Sydney. So I had a bit more of a city life, and he was always a smaller town life. But we were always very creative. It's the only bone in our body that we've got, I think.
Super creative.
Super creative,
Yeah.
super stubborn, both of us. So, yeah, he started doing graphic design, and then I was doing odd jobs here and there trying to figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And once I had Zion, I just wanted to make some money and stay at home with him while he was little. So I just started getting creative and started sewing, and that's where my business started. So I had a fashion brand for 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, it evolved very quickly from being a little handmade on the dining table
And I
to
remember
being a big company with
it
lots of
started
stuff.
as like little shoes. Like,
yeah, little baby leather moccasins.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I have arthritis in my fingers
Oh
from
my
sewing
gosh.
that leather. It's so hard.
You can
Yeah,
relate.
I can
Yeah.
relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it started.
and then
it evolved
Yeah.
pretty quickly and in a pretty big way. And so Ben came on board to do that with me. He did graphics, and he's really good with more like vision stuff. So he focused on that, and obviously then photography.
He's good behind a lens.
He figured out how to do the photography for us, so we didn't have to hire somebody else, and he figured out that he loved it.
How all good businesses start.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a side gig. He went full time with you.
Yeah, full time with me. I think within 3 months of the business
Wow.
starting, I had to either shut it down because I couldn't keep sewing that much,
Totally.
or I had to get a manufacturer and go big. And so we went big, and luckily that paid off
Yeah.
for a while. So yeah, now he does photography
From home.
for himself and
Yep.
for other fashion brands and personalities and stuff like that. So he loves it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't have the business anymore. So
Totally.
sold it.
Yes.
Got out.
Got out.
Yeah. So life's a bit different now.
It is.
Yeah. But life changed pretty rapidly for you guys as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your mum
Yeah. So
and what she was like? And
yeah, I think it was halfway through the journey of my business, maybe 5 years into the business. That's when Mum passed away suddenly, and it was very, very unexpected.
yeah.
She wasn't sick or anything like that. Everyone knew my mum to be super healthy, super fit, and she was stunning. She was so beautiful. She'd walk around the whole of Coffs Harbour, and everyone just always commented on how beautiful she was and how well dressed she was. And yeah,
Wow.
she was a really lovely lady, but she knocked the top off a mole on her back and it got infected, but it didn't look infected. She was a beauty therapist, so she knew how to treat skin. She knew how to look after skin. She was redressing it. It looked perfectly fine, looked like it was healing beautifully. And tiny, you wouldn't think anything of it. You'd scrape your knee and just be like,
Wow.
oh, put a Band-Aid on, it'll be fine in a few days. That's all she felt about
Wow.
it. No pain in the site either. But then she started to get pain under her arms, and she put that down to, I trained a bit too hard at the gym this week.
Oh, wow.
So again, didn't think anything of it. And then she started getting like some vomiting and stuff. But again, didn't think anything of that because we had
And
the
you guys-
gastro bug
Yeah, so you
a
didn't
few
think of
days
anything.
prior. So we just thought, oh, she's caught it off us.
Oh.
She just needs to, rest up for a couple of days and it'll pass.
Just normal things.
Very
Yeah.
normal.
Super normal things.
Yep, very normal. But hers didn't get better after, gastro usually lasts like 24 hours kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe 48 hours. Hers just kept going and she was getting worse.
So at that point, was there sort of some concerns to go, is this just long gastro, or do we,
She called
did she get checked out at that point?
doctor on duty to come to the house one of the nights, and he came out and checked like her pulse and a few things. He couldn't find her pulse in her fingers,
Wow.
which we now know is an issue.
Right.
He should have been able to find the pulse in
Sure.
her fingers, and that meant that the blood was already leaving her extremities. So he just gave her gastro stop and left, which you can buy over the counter yourself. So
Oh my
that's really
goodness.
not helpful. And the next morning, I got a call from my dad saying, your mum's not good. I think I need to take her to hospital. I'm like, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Get her to hospital. He's like, I don't think I can get her down the stairs. She won't let me touch her. She was in a lot of pain.
Whoa.
Just like could not even be
And
lightly
that had just happened
touched.
overnight.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So it happens very, very quickly, apparently. And so I said, well, call an ambulance then. And he said, how do I do that?
Wow.
Because he'd already started to go
was in
into
shock.
shock, and he couldn't even think straight at that point in time to like, what's the next step? How do I call an ambulance?
Wow. And so what was happening in her body right now?
Her body was shutting down. Every organ in her
From the
body was
infection?
Yes.
And do we know what the infection is? Is it
I actually don't know in the end what they ruled it to be, whether it was a staph or a strep or a golden staph, what it was. That was kind of a blur after that point.
totally?
It didn't really matter to me at
Yeah.
that point. She was gone
Yeah.
either way. But the technical term for what she died of is called septicemia. So
Right.
that means the infection poisoned her blood. So it went
Right.
totally through her body, through her bloodstream. But yeah, so I jumped in the car. I said, I'll call the ambulance. I jumped in the car
You
and
were
called.
in Coughs
Yeah.
at the time, so you're in
Yeah,
town.
like 7 minutes away
Right.
from their house. So I jumped in the car, called the ambulance through the car, hands-free, and started driving there. By the time I got there, she was completely purple.
Oh.
She wouldn't let me touch her. And 2 ambulances came to the house. They couldn't get a line in anywhere because all of her veins had shut down already.
There's
and
no blood flowing.
collapsed.
Yeah.
So they had to try and get it through her main artery in her leg or
I've got
into
shivers.
her into her main artery in her neck.
Gosh.
And couldn't. And then we followed the ambulance to the hospital, and she had a heart attack on arrival because the heart is usually the last muscle to give out. It's the strongest muscle. So everything else had already shut down. Dad and I were placed in a room to wait. Obviously, they don't let you in while they're trying to, save
Sort
their
it out.
life. That's the top priority for the doctors. So I was sitting there praying really, really hard
Yeah.
and texting like the prayer line that church had, saying, please pray harder. It's not working.
Yeah.
The doctor would come in and say, it's not working. Do you want us to continue or let her go? I said, continue. Obviously, you're not going to
Wow.
just go, oh yeah, sure, let her go. Like,
Totally.
I wanted at least a few more times, keep trying. And then they came back in a third time and said, look, we can continue, but every organ in her body has shut down. If we bring her back, she will be a vegetable, and she won't have quality of life. So, yeah.
So you made
But
that
okay.
final call? Like,
Yeah, we had to.
yeah.
There was no option at that point. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
So it was you and your dad?
Yeah, so it's just Dad and I
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
and he is 10 years older than mum. So,
Sure.
and he had retired a lot earlier than a lot of people, luckily.
So how old were they at this time?
Mum was 59.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just turned 59 when she passed away. And Dad was 69. So I instantly went into, I've got to look after Dad mode.
Yeah, caretaker, hey.
Yeah, like instantly. I didn't even process.
It's like a primal, just rises up.
Yeah, he was just broken. Like she was
Yeah.
his world.
Yeah.
She was very capable and did everything around the house and bills and, just life stuff. So I
Life
knew
admin.
I had to do that for him instantly. And I had to call around and tell everybody, Mum's passed away. Dad was
Such a
just
weight on the shoulders.
Not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the time span from when
Yeah,
she'd knocked the mole to now? A couple of weeks?
No, days.
Days?
Maybe 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd call that sudden, tragic.
Well,
Like,
it was sudden because we didn't think she was even dealing with an infection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Healthy for 4
She
days.
had a
and then,
scab, like a perfectly fine looking scab. And then she had sore underarms, which we thought was the gym. And then she had vomiting, which we thought she had our gastro. So it felt like it was only like the morning that we called the ambulance. And then within an hour of driving to the hospital, she was gone. It felt like an hour,
Yeah.
not 5 days.
So you were able to backtrack and put it down to the mole?
Yes. Yeah. So they concluded that the site of the infection getting into the bloodstream was the mole.
And that's
Yes.
just crazy because, like, we fall over all the time.
I know.
And do all
My
sorts of
kids
stupid
fall over
stuff.
daily. Like, I need a Band-Aid. I'm
Like,
bleeding.
worse things
that
than-
an infection
yeah.
can get in.
Wow.
As soon as you see blood,
Oh.
it can get in.
It kind of like you go, well, you can't walk around with bubble wrap on,
No, you can't. No.
She was just living, she didn't bump it on like rusty metal or anything like that.
Nope. And the police, because of the nature of the way she died, they had to come to the house to rule out that it wasn't an unsafe
Yeah, drugs
place
or...
and she could have got the
Oh, right.
infection from like a dirty home or anything like that.
Wow.
But
okay.
like my parents have had a stunning home in Coffs Harbour that was
Yeah.
very minimalistic. Like everything was white.
And I can imagine as a
like,
beautician, like
so clean. You literally couldn't find a piece of clutter anywhere or dirt.
Wow.
Like the cleanest home. The police walked in, they're just like, oh, we're not going to find anything here. And they just walk back out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're like, we're not even going to look around. You could tell.
So for you, this was like the closest to home grief has ever hit.
Yes.
You'd lost your nan.
Yeah, I lost my nan 3 months prior to mum.
Yeah.
Your
but-
mum's mum?
No, Dad's mum. Yeah. But, elderly people, you're ready, you're waiting. And she had been sick for weeks and weeks and weeks and getting progressively worse,
you've
and
been
then taken to
processing.
the hospital where they do the palliative care. And
Yeah.
so you're like,
Long
oh,
journey.
Nan's going to go. You say your goodbyes, and it's almost a relief letting them go and going, they had a great life and, they're at peace now.
So you
It
almost
wasn't
feel
sad.
prepared.
It
Sure.
wasn't like grief. It was like mourning where you're like, oh, I'm sad she's not here anymore. But it wasn't like, oh my God, she's not here anymore.
What do
That's-
I do?
Yes.
I think that's interesting, the difference between mourning and grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you mourned your grandmother,
Yeah.
but it was just total shock, obviously, with mum.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
you had Dad, Ben, both kids at that time.
Yeah.
And everyone responded differently.
Yes.
Had Ben been through any grief? So for
No.
him, this is
No.
the first time and he's supporting you.
Yes, and he loved mum. Like he really, really loved mum. Everyone did, but he had never felt the physical feeling in his
Sure.
body of grief before that he tried to describe to me.
Right.
But at the same time, he didn't want to tell me too much about how bad he was feeling because he's like, well, it was
Gotta
your mum. Like I've got to be here for you.
Yeah.
I'm still sad, but like you get a bigger pass here.
Yeah.
He had a
Yeah.
good relationship with your mum?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And the kids were very different as well. Like, I think they were like 3 or 4 at the time. So Zion handled it worse. He's my little ball of emotion, that one.
He's got the feelings.
Yes. Yeah. And
So
he
how did
really
that show up with him?
He just went very quiet and cried a lot and didn't want to accept it.
Sure.
Whereas Lacey is very matter of fact, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Nanny's dead.
And wouldn't she say
she's
that
in heaven? Like that's probably Nanny there. That's a star. Nanny's watching us, and can we call Nanny?
Wouldn't she
can
tell
we talk
random
to
people?
Nanny in heaven?" I'm like, "No, it doesn't really work like that."
Oh,
like,
wow. Didn't she tell random people that on the street?
yeah, my nanny died. She's in heaven. I'm like,
my gosh.
just like randomly in the shopping trolley in Woolworths. Yeah.
Did that bring up stuff for you? Like, how did you respond?
I mean, it's hard because, like, I can't break down every time my child says something. They don't understand that they're being blunt about something that you've got to be more gentle about.
Who does she get that from?
I don't know, actually. Ben and I are both like pretty self-aware and emotional people, so I'm not sure where she gets that bluntness from. Maybe it's just because of her age. She was just so young, and it was just like, well, Nanny was here and now she's gone.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm gonna cast my vote.
fact.
She gets it from Jazz.
do you reckon?
I reckon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You're matter of fact.
I am matter of fact, but I'm very sensitive with this kind of stuff. But
For sure.
I'm older and I've had to deal with, delivering
You've got the maturity
bad news
part
and
where she
chatting
didn't
with
have that.
people. Yes, exactly. And she's better now. Like, now that she's nearly 10, she's actually very gentle with the way that she speaks to people and careful with, like, if she needs to tell people politely that she doesn't want to play with them or something.
Sure.
She's very cautious of how that would make them feel. So she's definitely got that bone in her body. She just didn't at 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
So, like, immediately after, what was your response like? Was it scream and shout? Was it, I need to get out of here? Was it, you've got Dad to take care of?
I was just practical. I just went straight into, I have to call everybody. I have to let them all
So
know.
they had a business,
Mum had a beauty salon.
right?
Yeah.
And so that needed taken care of.
Yes. So we had to just put a sign up in the window to let people know. Obviously, she wouldn't be turning up for the appointments.
Yeah. Did she have staff?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just her.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a tight-knit little beauty salon with all her clients she loved.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had to sort out all sorts of things. You said things like phone, companies and all sorts of bills and that sort of thing.
Telstra took 9 months to sort out. Yeah, that was a nightmare. And
they don't really understand that your mum's dead.
no, even though you're pressing the numbers to go through to the berental team.
Yeah.
To specifically speak to the team about somebody
Loss.
that's passed away and trying to get the account sorted out. And you get through and they're like, well, we need to speak to Mrs. Janice Young. I'm like, that's not possible.
That's why I'm calling.
That's
Because
why
I'm
calling
talking to the
you.
bereavement team.
She's not here anymore, and I need to sort out the account to get it across into my dad's name so we don't lose the phone number. I don't know why that is so hard for you to understand. And I ended up just, getting to the point that I was blasting them on the phone. Put me onto the manager straight away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk to you. I want somebody higher up. I want
Yeah.
names and phone numbers of direct people for the next time I call, not going through this
It's
again.
not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, ended up shouting down the line, she's dead.
Yeah.
She can't come to the phone.
Right.
Like, what do you want me to do about it? I've shown you the death certificate.
It was the same with us.
Mm.
It was calling people and going, Dad's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you need to know?
Yeah.
You can't speak to him.
Yeah.
There's no possible way. If
Yes.
you could, let
Yeah.
me know. And
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And
So what operating procedure do you have from here on out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fix this.
Because I'm sure this
Exactly.
is not the first time that someone has
It just
Yes.
it blows me away that it was the bereavement team. If it was regular service,
Yeah.
customer service,
Yeah.
Sure, maybe they didn't get trained on that.
And sure, then they go, oh, we'll put you through to the bereavement team.
cool, I'll be taken care of.
And I got through to the bereavement team, and then they had no idea either.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You had to
Telstra, if you're listening, this is a
Be better. Do better.
be better. Yeah.
customer service warning.
You had to also buy a house for your dad.
Yeah.
What was the story there?
Just he struggles with like all, you know, modern day technology and banking and all of that, and gets quite overwhelmed. He has always dealt with anxiety as well, so mum used to take care of all of those kinds of things, and you know, dealing with the lawyers and the banks and the process
There's
of
so much
big
in buying a
things like
house.
that. So when we moved back up to the Gold Coast, and we said we wanted him to
So he
come,
came up. Yep.
yeah, we didn't want to leave him in cost by himself with no one, and he thought it would be a good move for him, a bit of a fresh start. Didn't walk around the same house looking at all the same memories of mum.
Yeah.
So I had to house hunt and find him the right home for him.
And you sold the other one?
Yeah, sold the one in Coffs, and
So you're grieving, you're selling a home, you're moving cities,
moving
you're
states,
buying a home.
Yeah, still running my business.
Which you had how many staff at the time?
When mum passed away, we had 16 staff.
And so they're looking for direction.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to keep things
And
together.
still being a mum, plus we were youth pastor and young adults pastor.
Wow.
We were worship team, preaching, welcoming. We were doing a lot of things. We were very, very busy people. I mean, I do think it helped me. I liked being busy. I liked the distraction.
Yeah.
So none of that stopped?
None of that stopped. I think maybe a year after I lost mum, I said to Ben, I don't think I can do youth anymore. I think we need to hand it on to somebody else.
And that's about the time as well you had a mental breakdown.
Yes,
a year after.
A year later, that's when I actually
busy.
grieved.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, fair, because you just went into practical mode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had to.
totally.
I had too many things that still had to function on a daily basis, and I couldn't just go crawl up in a ball and
where would your dad be
ignore it.
now, you know, if you weren't able to help sort all of that out?
100%, yeah. Dad would have really struggled without us. He would come over for dinner during the week so that I knew he was getting some home cooked meals. He had to relearn how to cook because he hadn't for 30 years because she always did. So I'd get phone calls saying, how do I boil rice? How do I steam veggies?
Wow.
Just basics, you know, like when you've been out of practice and you haven't done it for 30 years, you're like, oh, how long do I put them in for again? Like I wouldn't even remember. So yeah. And he didn't have a job because he retired so early. So he didn't really have anything to keep him busy and distracted and keep his mind occupied. So he would just sit and mull over the grief and being lonely in the house. So he helped with the business. He'd come and do pickups for the post office, do post office runs for us. And he used to do all of my mum's beauty salon washing, like all the towels, and then wash them, dry them, fold them, bring them back each day. So he started doing that for us. He'd take our washing home and do that and bring it back for us and put it on the end of our beds. And it
For
just
something
gave
to
him
do.
a bit of purpose. Yeah, to
Yeah,
get up in
totally.
the morning, got to go get Jazzy's washing. I got to go do the post office run for the girls.
It's those small things in those early days.
Yeah, it got him out of the house in the car,
100%.
got him dressed, made him shave, have a shower, you know.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you can say I did something today.
Yes. Yeah, and he saw people. He spoke
Sure.
with people, had human connection. He didn't isolate.
There's so much to grief, right? We're here talking about you and your relationship with mum, but then there's all these other people that are, you know, obviously your dad married for so long, and then the way Ben's dealing with it and the kids.
Yeah.
You shared that Ben would ask you sort of 2 questions every morning
Yeah, so
to start the day.
once that year finished where I was just in my practical mode, not grieving, and then I had my mental breakdown and went into full-blown grieving and not really functioning.
What did that look like?
Did it
It's
come on
such a
suddenly
blur.
or was it a gradual thing?
I feel like it was pretty sudden. Like it was the year anniversary kind of time.
Okay.
And, you know, everybody doesn't really know what to say, whether to say anything at all or to acknowledge it. I didn't want it to be acknowledged because I didn't want to think about it.
So you didn't like celebrate the firsts or anything in any way?
No.
You didn't want to acknowledge it at all?
No. I had a champagne for Mum because she loved champagne.
Yep.
So kind of that was my little connection. And I cooked a lot more because she was a very good cook. I felt a connection to her when I'd cook and have a glass of wine while I was cooking.
That's really cool.
Felt like she left that for me because I
Yeah.
didn't really care so much for cooking before she passed away. And
That's interesting as well, that we pick up on things that we weren't interested previously,
Yeah.
because we go, I wish I had have,
yeah,
leaned into that or asked more or
yes, yeah. There's
shown
so many
interest.
so many questions that you realize, oh, I never asked that.
Yeah, we just
Yeah,
go
I
about
can't.
living.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Just you get into the mundane or like, oh, you know, I don't want to do another dinner with the family this week or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, eventually you're not going to be able to do
Never
a dinner
again
with the family.
will we have those thoughts. Hey,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, the mental breakdown for me turned into a full-blown diagnosis of panic disorder,
wow.
generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. So I couldn't really differentiate reality from
Yeah.
intrusive, irrational thoughts. So I genuinely, with every bone in my body, felt like the world was about to end and that end days were here.
Wow.
I would see clouds in the sky and the first thing I'd wake up, look out the window and there would be clouds. And I would just get this feeling of impending doom just fill
It's going to end.
my body, like such a physical feeling. It's not just even in my mind. It was like, you know, when you like know I have a gut feeling so strong that this is going to happen and you feel unsafe. I felt like that it was today. And so we should keep the kids home from kindy to
Wow.
protect them. I made Ben research end times so that I could know what was going to happen and how I was going to prepare for that and protect my children.
So now you've got a theologian as a husband.
Well, he was already a preacher, so he was already kind of like across
Yeah.
a lot of these things, but I never wanted to know about that stuff because it made me feel anxious.
Did you fear death? Like after your mum died and you go through that experience, did you fear death after that? Because it sounds like you worry about impending doom.
Yeah.
But I know I was like, I'm okay to die. Like,
Right.
I'm all right now. I can die.
No, I was just fearful of things happening out of my control.
Sure.
Because Mum was out of like an out of control situation where it's you don't get like, oh, you know, you've got cancer, you've got this long
Yeah.
to live. That it was just like she was here and then she was gone. So then I went into, well, I have to be in control of every situation and think of every tiny little thing preemptively, which is anxiety, so that bad things don't occur. And I have to be so onto it, otherwise they'll die. My kids will die, Ben will die, or I'll die.
Yeah.
Because I should have been more onto it and seen the signs of Mum deteriorating in the days, because even if we'd caught it a few hours before, she could have still been here. But I palmed it off and just went, oh, it's just gastro. So now every time my kids get sick or they've got a headache, I'll instantly go to, well, that could be a brain tumor.
could be
We
the
need to go
worst.
and get an MRI done because it might not just be a headache.
And that's still to this day? Or
So not so much now that I've sold the business.
Yeah.
I don't really have anxiety much anymore at all.
That's awesome.
Which is very new to me and very
Yeah.
interesting because I thought,
what is this like?
this is just who I am now. I just
Wow.
am an anxious person. But yeah, just in the last kind of 4 or 5 months, I'm like, I don't feel anxious anymore. This is really weird. It's almost like
Ben actually...
I almost feel anxious that I'm not anxious
Right.
because
Right.
I'm like, I'm so used to feeling that way. And it was almost comfort.
And do you think that it was the business's fault, or do you think that the anxiety that came from your mum while you're in the business was kind of attached, so you just kind of needed to let the business go? Like, do you think if your mum had never passed, would you have had that anxiety about the business and wanted to sell?
Possibly. The business was very, very stressful. I never intended it to be the size that it got to.
Business is
Look,
just
I'm
intense.
grateful that the business went really well and it grew like it did. I'm not ungrateful at all.
Totally.
But I never set out for it to be a company and everyone would be like, oh, you're building an empire. I didn't want an empire. I wanted a few $100s a week to stay home with my babies. That's why I was hand sewing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what the intention of the business started.
Yeah.
And it turned into so much more. And it was very, very stressful and a lot of risk in money outlay, like 12 months in advance and stuff. And you never know if people are going to like the stuff and buy it and you'll recoup your money or not. So it was its own monster in the end. Yeah. And that was very stressful.
Business is just a beast. People are like, oh, wow, look at you up on the podium, but it's just underneath the water, you are kicking like crazy to stay afloat.
Just drowning, really. Yeah. Feel like you're out on a floaty in the middle of the ocean. Everyone's on the shore. They're so far out of reach, out of help. And the floaty has a hole in it, and you've got to keep your finger on the hole the whole time, and it's just like,
while the other hand's doing all the business stuff.
I can't do this.
I can't move too far because else we'll all die.
Yes,
that is so true.
Oh my goodness,
great analogy.
Yeah.
Funny, hey, struggle, and that's a great. Did you have to go through grief, like grieving the business as a?
I grieved the business for about 4 years before I sold it because I hated it for the last 4 or 5 years. I wasn't ready to let it go though. I didn't want it, but I didn't want anyone else to have it.
Yeah, it's
because it was my baby. Mm-hmm. So it was a very long time of slowly letting it go. Ben would have liked me to let it go a lot earlier than I did. Because he could see from the outside in, but I just kept saying, no, I'm not ready. I'll let you know when I'm ready, and I'm very stubborn like that
and
too.
Do you think the grief with your mum is like intertwined in that as well?
Possibly. It's just so hard to tell. There's so much that goes on it's nearly 7 years now, I think. So much in that time of having young children and everything else that we were doing. It's hard to know what affected what.
It does become a blur.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So back to Ben, I'd like to know more about, how Ben
stepped
up and supported.
That's right.
Yeah.
So each morning he would come into the bathroom while I was getting ready for the day and he'd be like, how are you feeling this morning? And pretty much every morning I would answer with, I'm really fragile today.
Mm-hmm.
Must have been so exhausting for him to hear that for so many years. It's draining, when someone's not in a good mood around you and you're just like, oh, can you just cheer up? Like, it is very draining. So,
So
all hands for him because
shout out Ben.
Well done, Ben.
Shout out Ben.
He did a lot of supporting for me.
He actually texted me, or we were chatting, maybe was around just after selling the business. He said, I haven't seen Jazz, this free and happy in a long time. So that was really cool.
Very free.
But daily, that was a daily thing. He'd come in, how are you today?
I'm feeling really fragile. Right. And he's like, what can I do?
Yeah. I think that's just a great question. Spouse, but even as a friend, or someone, family journeying along. Simple question.
Yeah.
Did you expect much from how you answered, or it was just great that he cared?
Yeah, he was just checking in how he could be of assistance that day, I guess, because some days I'd be like, I can't go into work, or I need you to drop the kids to school. I'm not getting out of bed today, or I need you to take me out for the day to just distract me somehow, like let's go shopping or let's do something. So instead of him trying to be the fixer and go, well, Jazz should do this and this and this and I should tell her what to do, he was just like, well, what do you want from me today?
Sure.
And is there anything triggering specifically your anxiety today? Because sometimes it would be, oh, I'm really worried about the kids having a headache, or gastro's going around, so I'm feeling really anxious that we might get it. Gastro was a big trigger for a long time because that was the lead up to mum dying. So I was so frightened of getting it again. And I was frightened that we'd given her the bug that killed her, but it's a different bug. So the doctor explained all of that to me.
And even at the best of times, no one wants gastro.
No, exactly. It's not fun to begin with.
It's not fun.
But yeah, it was a real trigger.
Were there any other triggers that were that, potent?
No, it was just mainly,
It was around that.
gastro.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, getting sick. So I got a lot of anxiety around health
Sure.
after that.
And you tried a ton of stuff
Oh, I tried everything
to work this out.
Yeah, of course.
you
Like,
just
you don't want to
share-
feel that way. It's horrible to constantly feel that way for years. So you either crawl into a hole and feel that way forevermore, or
try and
you
fix it
get out
somehow.
and try and do everything.
Yeah, so can you just share some of the stuff? Like, I think people listening probably will relate pretty heavily to this.
Yeah. So obviously, like being in church, the immediate things that people tell you to try is pray, worship, read,
Yeah.
Be involved, be connected, get around people. So obviously I was doing all of that the whole time. And then, speaking to a psych, trying medications, essential oils.
Right.
Psychologist, not a psychic.
No, not a psychic.
Psychologist, yeah.
Psychologist, psychiatrist.
Yes.
Yeah. Counselors, Christian counselors, non-Christian counselors,
Wow.
like trying all different
You tried stuff with diet, nutrition.
naturopath. Yeah. Tried everything, reacted to every medication that I tried.
Wow.
I have a very sensitive body, so I gave up on medication for a long time till I moved up here.
And what
I
sort of
found
meds?
one.
Like sleeping tablets or
mood
mood balances?
Valium,
Yeah.
sleeping tablets, and then tried anxiety and depression medications as well. Ended up on one that was actually for seizures and
Wow.
schizophrenia, I think it was actually for, because I had some other problems in my body as well, like a chronic pain condition. So this one, the doctor thought could hit
Right.
two
a couple
birds
of
with one
things.
stone. So yeah, ended up with that one for 2 years and weaned off that early this year.
Okay.
Any other side effects with those medications?
Yeah, so every side effect with all of them except that last one. So the
Sure.
last one was like, oh my gosh, I finally found a drug that I can take that helps
Right.
what I'm feeling, like takes those highs and lows off the anxiety and the depression. But yeah, all of the other ones, I had every side effect on the back of the packet except death.
Yeah, wow. Oh my goodness.
So like passing out,
Oh.
paralysis. Literally while I was in the shopping centre one day, I lost feeling from my bottom half and couldn't walk.
Far out.
Yeah, demonic hallucinations. Yeah.
What a wild ride.
Yeah, it was a
Wow.
lot.
And so has there been anything you've tried that has helped or has had a positive effect?
For me, really, the only thing that I think helped me was keeping myself busy, and that's not going to work for everybody.
Totally.
Everybody grieves differently and in different timings, and don't let anybody make you feel crap for that or judged
Yeah.
for the way you're handling it.
Sounds like you felt judged.
Very much
Yeah.
so. Yes, everyone has an opinion on the way that you should be doing it or what you should be trying or what you're not doing good enough, or that you should have snapped out of it by now.
Yeah.
But I think for me was keeping busy and being around people.
Sure.
I don't bottle things up. I'm a good talker anyway. So going to a psych or a counsellor didn't really help me because it was a stranger that I was talking to. I'm very good at talking to
You could do that with friends.
my group.
Yeah.
I can very easily talk to them about how I was feeling in a deep way, and they were very receptive.
So friends super helpful, your core friends.
Yeah, not isolating myself was key.
If we just jump back a bit, being involved in church and that sort of thing, you didn't have the best experience there. And so I guess that's why, you know, we are talking about grief in all different forms, and some people have great experiences with church family and their faith. You didn't necessarily have the best experience. So what, I guess from my perspective, walking it, it's like I didn't either.
Okay.
And so, like, to set the scene for everybody else listening, it's kind of like, and for you, it's like, I didn't either. And I struggled for the first year in the church that we were both at.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I just think I've got to get out of here. Like, you know, but I don't blame, you know, people, because I didn't know how to help people going through grief when I hadn't experienced it.
And different personalities just don't know how to do or can't meet you where you need to be met.
Yeah.
That's not their fault. It's just it didn't work for you.
Yeah. So what was that like?
I think because there's such a stigma in church that, you know, medication isn't the right route to go down. It should be just leaning on Jesus and prayer.
Mental health is really
prayer and
misunderstood.
worship and reading.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you should only lean on him, and that will heal everything. He will heal everything. And for me, he wasn't there. Like, God was nowhere.
Sure.
I didn't feel him. Honestly, since I lost my mum for the last 7 years, I haven't felt him be close to me.
Wow.
I felt like in that moment, he was a genie that just went poof and disappeared. And everyone's going, you know, he's right there next to you, lean on him, like draw close to him. And I knew exactly what they were talking about because I was so involved in church.
Totally.
And I had said that to people, and I had felt his presence prior to that.
Sure.
But once Mum passed away, I was just in a cloud of darkness, and he wasn't there.
Wow.
And I still haven't felt him come back to this day. So it was a lot of pressure on top of already feeling like I was failing and not thriving and, you know, not living very well in my grief and in the panic disorder and that impending doom fear every single day. I then also felt like I was failing at being a Christian because I wasn't praying enough. I wasn't reading enough. I clearly wasn't doing it right because I couldn't feel God anymore.
Sure.
And he wasn't there. And so then obviously you start pulling back from rosters and stuff, and then you feel guilty that you're letting people down, whether they felt that or not. I felt that they were disappointed that I was stepping back and that I wasn't the Jasmin that they knew before. I wasn't the yes Jasmin. I was suddenly the no Jasmin.
Sure.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of pressure, and I felt crappier being in church. I actually ended up having panic attacks walking into the church doors. So I stopped going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if mine was a panic attack, but definitely anxiety rising up, like pulling into the car park.
Yes.
Just because you've got so much attachment and memory. I don't know if what did you do for Mum? Did you bury Mum? Cremate her? Did you have a funeral at that church?
She was cremated, and she wanted her ashes out to sea. So we took her down to a beach that she loved. She walked on every single day, and wow. Ben actually paddled her out on his surfboard.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That's so special.
Yeah. So we had no funeral. There was no people there. It was just Ben, the kids, and I, and Dad. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard for me to go back where we'd had the funeral. You know, and just all of those feelings rising up. So I totally relate.
Yeah.
So how did you and Ben, best friends, married, you've walked, a faith journey, Christian for so long. How did you guys reconcile that? How did you chat it out? How did you, you still work? We're not at the destination.
Chat
but
out the grief or chat out the church
just
part?
faith side together, like did Ben lose, his connection with God through that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think gradually we both felt further and further away from all of what we used to be 100% in on.
Yeah.
And I think it hurt him to see how much I was struggling, how much I was hurting being in the church when it should have been a place of feeling peace and calm and essentially we knew, church is still a place of peace and calm, but we're just not feeling that anymore.
Sure.
And we don't know why, and it's so confronting to have these different feelings.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started to step back a lot. We started to question a lot of things. And it was just a very foreign feeling for us.
Yeah. So how do you, flipping it a bit, how do you reckon all of the Christians listening in, maybe pastors, maybe there's people serving on teams, what do you reckon they could do that would be simple just to start the process to support people going through grief better?
I think definitely have people within your team that are specifically gifted in helping people with grief.
Sure.
Don't try and do it if you don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and preach it if you don't understand it. Get someone in that can actually speak from a place of, I've been there.
Totally.
Empathy, not sympathy.
Yeah, so good.
Just because it is a lot more damaging to hear from somebody that doesn't get it. And it just makes you feel even more alone and like you're doing it wrong or you should be praying more.
Sure.
If one more person said, "Have you prayed?"
Oh my gosh, totally.
I was going to slap them across the face. I'm like, do you not think I've tried that? Oh my gosh.
Seriously. And I guess the point of this conversation isn't to try and solve that, challenge. It's such a big one. Like, it's honestly so big.
No.
Just to shed some light.
I don't,
Yeah.
And I don't think it's something that you can solve,
No.
especially because everybody is going to handle it differently. So what I needed in my grief, you could have needed something completely opposite. So I could have been like, I don't want to talk to anybody. And you're like, please, everybody come and talk to me. So then obviously that's hard for the church or whoever you're going to, a counselor or whatever, to be able to reach you in the place you need to be reached unless you're communicating what you need, which is why it was a good thing that Ben was asking, what do you need from me today? Instead of him saying, here, have this, this, and this. Because I would have been like, I don't want that.
It's so interesting. It makes me, only just recently I've found, like, I'm still reading the Bible, right? But I've found this passage in Job that, Job's story, had everything stripped from him and can't imagine that sort of grief. And it's just a crazy, complex scenario anyway.
Yes.
But his friends heard about the grief and they went to see him. I can't quote where it is in Job, but his friends with crazy names, he's got the simplest one. They went to see him. They're like, we're going to go give him advice. We're going to go support him. We're going to go help him out. And it says that when they saw him from a distance, they saw his grief and they tore their clothes. And when they got to him, they sat on the ground and did nothing. Yeah. And they just literally sat with him. And I've read Job, even since Dad died, but like it only just was highlighted to me. I'm like, sometimes that's all that's needed.
Yeah, you just need someone's presence to just sit with you so that you're not alone. Not
trying to fix it, not trying to prescribe stuff.
No.
Give you advice that they don't know about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I just made me think of that. I'm like, we get told, sometimes or in church, like, try this, do that, pray, read this. Sometimes it's just being with them. Yeah. Sitting through it.
Yeah, you need to
and
have
I think
more faith.
We've been getting a lot of people saying that they just had people not I mean, most of us would have people who don't know what to do
Yes.
when someone first loses someone.
Yeah.
And most of the time, we just need you to be there. We just need you to be present
Yeah.
and not be weird
Yeah.
about it. Don't be afraid to ask about our loved ones,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
we still want their spirit to be remembered.
Yeah.
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 You found a couple of things that I thought was interesting that did help.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of discovered Instagram and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Yeah.
you like share a little bit about what that was like and how that came about? And
Yeah. I mean, you know, once the algorithm figures out what you like watching, they feed you more.
yeah,
So I was obviously pausing for a few more seconds on the videos about grief or like memes, you know, not funny memes, but like,
well,
you
there
know,
is some funny ones.
like quotes.
Ones you gotta read.
Quotes are
Yeah.
probably the better word, like a
Sure.
written image or a tile that's got words on it about losing somebody or about anxiety or about, you know, encouragement of, you know, you might feel anxious today, but tomorrow's a new day, you know, just little things like that, that sometimes it's just exactly what you needed to read at that moment in time and you felt it.
Just a
Wow.
glimmer of hope.
Yeah. And it made you feel like there's other people out there that are feeling the same. So
That's
I'm not
big.
alone in this. And I didn't have to talk to anybody and I didn't have to put on a face and pretend that I was okay or anything like that. You could just read and screenshot it and scroll on and,
yeah.
you know, it was as simple as that.
And you even looked at comments and saw other people's comments.
Yeah, other comments, just people going, I really needed to see this today, or that was really helpful, or, you know, I lost my dad this long ago, or whatever. And you just realize that there's this whole world you didn't know about before
That you're now connected
of
to.
grief, and so many people are in it and so many people get it.
Yeah,
But there is still people that haven't gone through it yet, and
fully.
honestly, I don't wish it on them.
No, totally.
I'm glad that they've been shielded up until this point, but obviously we're not all going to be shielded from it because everybody's going to go in the end. So
yeah.
we're all going to have to face grief, and we're all going to do it differently, and it should be okay to go through those motions of feeling anger and denial and, you know, the whole process.
In all kinds of crazy orders.
Yeah. And you're allowed to go back to it as well.
Totally.
It's not like, oh, you did the anger part, we've moved on from that, like cut that out now.
Yeah.
No, I reserve the right to go
That's
back
awesome.
and feel any of those feelings, and you don't get to judge me.
That's so
Thank you
good.
very much. Pulling out my
Yes.
anger card today, and I'm using it.
Yes, and
Yeah.
today I'm pulling the "You're no longer in my life" card.
You have the red card.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Yeah. You've been red carded.
Yeah.
It just made me think. I saw this soccer video, and a guy got yellow carded, and the player pulls out the reverse card
Oh, yeah,
and gave
yeah.
it to the.
Love
so
it.
good. I guess for other women tuning in that have lost their mum, what advice would you give to them in their moment of grief? Or anybody, but
Yeah.
relating to your scenario.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be specific to women. I think it would be just for anybody is, like I was just saying, allowing yourself to feel all of those feelings and not feeling any kind of guilt or shame or judgment about it, whether that be feelings from yourself, like
So
judging
good.
yourself, or letting other people make you feel that way, because you have to go through the flow of that or you will burst later on. Like, you just have to allow yourself to go through it and be okay with how long it takes and the process, and it does get better. It does feel less over time. The hole is still there,
Totally.
but the physical and the mental pain,
It changes.
it just gets a bit more dull.
yeah.
It's there.
More bearable.
It's a part of you now. You can acknowledge that, it changed you. But that's okay.
Do you feel like you've grown closer to grief?
Yeah. And I'm grateful for the way that I've now been able to be so empathetic towards other people that are going through the same, and I can connect with them on a level that I never would have been able to before.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a weird like flip side that it does have a positive change on you that you wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
But it still leaves you with loss.
It does.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Would you say there's been any other areas where it's made you better? Or you've grown because of it?
Understanding that mental health is such a real thing, and it can't just be fixed. Look, it can be fixed by Jesus. It can. I know people that have had radical, amazing, miraculous, healings.
Totally.
But it's not always purely just fixed by that.
Totally.
Some people have to go through all of the other things, and mental health is real. It is a chemical imbalance, just like if you have a headache and you need to take some Panadol. It's as simple as that. Mental health isn't as simple, but it's as simple as that you have a problem and there is solutions, and you should try all of the things to figure out what the solution is that works for you. I have a much better understanding of that now, where I will never shrug somebody's mental health off ever again, or tell them, oh, well, I'll pray for you, and then walk away.
Yeah.
I want to be more practical with people in their mental health. I also have had conversations with people about how it's affected my children, me having a panic disorder and them seeing so much of it, whether they should have seen it or not. I've had arguments with people about the way that I've handled it, but they're my children, and I've made a decision based on me knowing them better than anybody else does. And I believe 100% that them seeing mummy go through that and me not shielding them from the reality of it has now made them into more empathetic little people. And growing
That's
up,
so cool.
They're going to take mental health seriously. They'll never shrug off their friends when they're going through all, the teenage hormones and emotions and everything. They're going to be that beautiful friend that their friends come to and go, I'm not okay today.
So good. And
they're not going to be like, oh, shut up, like whatever, and shrug them off. They're going to be like, are you okay? How can I help you today? Zion will be very emotional with them and hug them and help them breathe if they're going through a panic attack.
That's amazing.
So
Whereas
beautiful.
Lacey will be practical and she'll be like, okay, where's your
What do we need to
medicine?
do?
Do you have any Valium? I'll get you a drink of water. I'll call the ambulance. Like,
So cool.
they've got their skill sets that I believe God already made them to have, and I gave them an ability to learn more around those beautiful giftings in their personality to be the kind of person they're going to be as adults. So I think that it's a good thing that they went through seeing mummy have this problem. And I will never let somebody make me feel like they shouldn't have seen it and they should have been shielded from it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh, we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
We have.
We just got into parenting. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But thanks for, we're downloading those as well. So,
yes.
Man.
So great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for your transparency.
Yeah. I don't know how to be any less transparent.
Super helpful.
And we need more of that around grief.
Yeah.
And I mean, wrapping up, I'd love to know, anyone tuning in, I'd love to know what's been, what's resonated, what's been helpful, what stood out, and drop it below. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know.
We'll give
Let
the feedback
Jazz
to
know.
Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Continue on the grief journey
Let me know.
together. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much for being
Thank
here. This is
you.
awesome.
Thanks.